This will be for the Kuta software worksheet, Systems of Equations Word Problems. Number 1, Kristen spent $131 on shirts. Fancy shirts cost $28 and plain shirts cost $15. If she bought a total of 7, then how many of each kind did she buy? All right, usually when I designate a variable, I use the first letter of the word. For instance, in this case, it says fancy shirts cost $28. So I'm going to let F equal the number of fancy shirts. All right, so F is going to be the number of fancy shirts, and I'm going to let P equal the number of plain shirts. So P is the number of plain shirts. Now, I'm going to highlight something here. We're going to be building 2 equations, but I want to highlight this sentence. If she bought a total of 7, okay, she bought a total of 7 shirts. So, please pause and try to write an equation based on the total number of shirts that I highlighted. All right, if F is the number of fancy shirts and P is the number of plain shirts, and she bought a total of 7, that's going to be F plus P equals 7. Now, for the price of the shirts, she spent a total of $131. The fancy shirts were $28, and the plain shirts were $15. So I want you to try to write an equation based on the price. All right, so try that, please. All right, so if the F is the number of fancy shirts and they each cost $28, the total amount paid for the fancy shirts is going to be 28 times F. And if P is the number of plain shirts and they each cost $15, the total amount paid for plain shirts is going to be 15 times P. And that's going to equal the total amount paid, which is $131. So now we have 2 equations. We have 2 unknowns, F and P, and we can solve. All right, you can use substitution or elimination. I would prefer to use elimination in this case, but you could use substitution. All right, out of the 28 and the 15 is the smaller number. So I'm going to multiply the top equation by 15. So I have 15p here as well. All right, so I'm going to take this equation and multiply it by 15. Okay, basically I'm multiplying both sides of the equal sign by 15. So let's distribute. 15 times 7, that's going to be 70, plus 35, that's going to be 105. Keep the equal sign. 15 times P is 15P. And 15 times F is 15F. All right, so we have the new equation there. It's really the same equation, it's just in a different form. And now, since we have 15p on both, we can subtract. All right, you can subtract going down, or you can even subtract going up. So I'm going to do it that way, because you can add or subtract the equations from each other. All right, 131 minus 105, that's going to be 31 minus 5, that's 26. 15p minus 15p cancels. 28f minus 15f is going to be 13f. All right, so this is f times 13. The opposite of times 13 is divided by 13. I'm going to do that to both sides of the equal sign. The 13s cancel. And 26 divided by 13 is just 2. So that equals f. All right, in order to solve for f, you want to take that and plug it in. Now, you can plug it into either equation. I think this one here that we crossed out is the easiest one. All right, so I'm going to take the F and I'm going to plug it in right here. Okay, we said F was 2. So what does that give us here? We're looking at this equation right here, F plus P equals 7. All right, we're plugging 2 in place of F, so it's going to be 2 plus P equals 7. And if you do minus 2 on both sides, P equals 5. So that's what they asked us. How many of each kind? 5 plain and 2 fancy. Number 2, there are 13 animals in the barn. Some are chicken and some are pigs. There are 40 legs in all. How many of each animal are there? Okay, just like before, I'm going to use the first letter of the word as my variable. So the number of chickens is going to be C. All right, C equals the number of chickens. And the number of pigs is going to be P. So P equals the number of pigs. Now let's see. The total number of animals is 13. So see if you can write an equation based on the total. If C is the number of chickens and P is the number of pigs, if we add C plus P, we should get the total, and that's 13. All right. And now for the other part of the equation. There are 40 legs in all. Okay. And of course you want to remember the pig has 4 legs, but the chicken has 2 legs. All right, pig has 4 legs, chicken has 2 legs, and there are 40 legs in all. See if you can write an equation using C and P based on the number of legs. All right, so let's line up the C and the P. The chicken has 2 legs, so 2 times C is the number of legs for all the chickens, and 4 times P is the number of legs for all the pigs. And there are 40 legs in all. So when you add them up, you get 40. All right, now just like last time, we can multiply the top equation by a number. Okay, we can do times 2 or times 4. I like the smaller number, so I'm going to do times 2. And distributing, 2 times 13 is 26. Keep the equal sign. 2 times P is 2P. And 2 times C is 2C. All right, we can add or subtract the equations. I'm going to subtract. In fact, I'm going to subtract going up. 40 minus 26 is 14. 4P minus 2P is 2P. And 2C minus 2C cancels. Here we have P times 2. The opposite of times 2 is divided by 2. All right, the 2's cancel. 14 divided by 2 is 7. And that equals P. You want to take that P and plug it in. All right, you can plug it into either equation, but I'm thinking this one right here is the easiest. So I'm going to take that 7 for the P and put it in right there. So I have C plus 7 equals 13. All right, and if you do minus 7 on both sides, C is just 6. All right, number 6. All 231 students in a math club went on a field trip. Some students rode in vans, which hold 7 each. Some students rode in buses, which hold 25 each. How many of each type of vehicle did they use if there were 15 in total? All right, so we're looking for each type of vehicle. Let's designate a variable for each type. Since buses, let's see. Since vans begins with a V, I'm going to let V equal the number of vans. And since buses begins with a B, I'm going to let B equal the number of buses. Now, it says there were 15 vehicles in total. So please write the equation for the total. All right, pretty simple. B is the number of buses, and V is the number of vans. If we add those together, we're going to get the total, 15. Now, for the other part, the other equations based on the students, there's a total of 231 students. Okay? The vans hold 7, and the buses hold 25. Okay? See if you can build an equation based on the number of students. All right, the buses hold 25 students. So how many students were in buses? Well, it's going to be 25 times the number of buses, 25B. And then for the vans, they hold 7 each. So how many were in the vans? 7 times V. And if you add those two together, the total number of students is 231. All right. And now it's just like the other equations. All right, we got the B's and the V's lined up. We can multiply the top by 25 or 7. I like to choose the smaller number, so I'm going to do times 7. Okay, if you know how to do substitution and you want to do that, that's fine. Distributing, 7 times 15, that's going to be 70 plus 35. That's a 105. 7 times V is going to be a 7V. And we keep the equal sign. And 7 times B is going to be 7B. All right, we can add or subtract. We can even subtract going up. I'm going to do it that way. 231 minus 105. 231 minus 100 is 131. Minus 5, that's 126. 7V minus 7V is gone, cancels. 25B minus 7B is going to be 18B. All right, this is 18 times B. The opposite of times 18 is divided by 18. And that cancels. 126 divided by 18. Let's see real quick. 126 divided by 18 is 7. So that's the number of buses. Okay, make sure your answer makes sense. It has to be a whole number for the number of buses. You can't have 8.3 buses. All right, you want to take that B and plug it in. Let's see. This one is the easiest. So 7 goes right in here in place of the B. So we have 7 plus V equals 15. If I do minus 7 on both sides, V is 8. All right, last one, number 8. Molly's Custom Kitchen Supply sells handmade forks and spoons. Cost the store $170 to buy the supplies for the fork, $130 for the supplies for the spoon. Store sells forks for $5.60, spoons for $5.40. Last April, they spent $37.9 on materials for forks and spoons. They sold the finished products for $147.2. How many forks and how many spoons? Okay, the first part's easy. They're asking us for a number of forks and spoons. As always, we're looking at the first letter of the variable. Okay, so F is going to be the number of forks. And I'm going to let S equal the number of spoons. So if you look at this problem, half of it's based on the sales, and the other half is based on the costs. All right, they started the numbers for the costs first. So if I write out costs over here, let's highlight the costs. All right, it costs $170 to buy the fork. All right, it costs $1.70 to buy the fork and $1.30 to buy the spoon. All right, and let's see. And they spent $37.90. Okay, so it costs $170 for the fork, $130 for each spoon, and they spent $37.90. See if you can build an equation based on the costs. So the total amount spent for the forks, it's going to be 1.7. You could say 1.70 if you want, same thing. 1.70 times F, the number of forks. And they spent $1.30 on the spoons. So you want to add $1.30 times each spoon. All right, that's how much they spent. That was the cost, and the total spent was $37.90. Now for the other equation, let's look at how much they made, the sales. All right, in fact, let me write sales. All right, let's highlight. The store sells forks for $5.60, and they sell spoons for $5.40. Okay, and they sold the finished products for a total of $147.20. All right, so see if you can build an equation based on the sales, highlighted in yellow. All right, so each fork sold for $5.60. So if you take $5.60 times the number of forks, that's going to be the total sales for forks. And if you take $5.40 times the number of spoons, that's going to be the total sales for spoons. And when they sold everything, they made $147.20. Okay. Now we kind of have ugly equations here. We might have to use the crisscross method. Let's see. If we do 5.6 divided by 1.7, let's see, 5.6 divided by 1.7. That's a big decimal. That's not going to work. Let's see, 5.4 divided by 1.3. That's a big decimal. That's not going to work either. Okay, so we're going to have to crisscross here. All right, this is going to be a little messy. So let's look at the S's. All right, I'm going to take the 540 and multiply the top equation by 540. And I'm going to take the 130 and multiply the bottom equation by 130. All right, so I put this one here and this one here. That's why I call it crisscross. All right, let's see. Now we're going to have to distribute this. All right, and rewrite. So 5.4 times 37.9, 204.66. All right, and 5.4 times 1.30, that's 7.02 S. All right, keep the equal sign. And then 5.4 times 1.7, that's 9.18 F. All right, keep the plus sign. Distributing on the bottom, 1.3 times 147.2, that's 191.36. Keep the equal sign. 1.3 times 5.4. That's 7.02. And really, we knew that already because we did 1.3 times 5.4 on top. 1.3 times 5.6. That's 7.28. And that's times F. All right, now we're in business. All right, let's see. We can subtract the equations from each other. Let's see. 8 minus 8 is 0. 11 minus 2 is 9. Keep the decimal. 8 minus 7 is 1. And keep the F. Okay, if you can't do that manually, do it on the calculator. 702S minus 702S, that cancels. Bring down the equals. And we're still subtracting. 0.66 minus 0.36 is 0.30. 4 minus 1 is 3. And 20 minus 19 is 1. Okay, this is 190 times F. The opposite of times is divided by. Cancels here. Hopefully this is a whole number. 13.3 divided by 1.9. And let's see. All right, so this here is 7. So F equals 7. You want to take that F and plug it in. All right, both equations are a little complicated, so I don't think any one is easier than the other. I'm going to take it and plug it in this equation right here. So take the 7 and put it in right there. All right, so that's going to be 1.7 times F. All right, I had to erase some stuff here. But anyhow, we got F equals 7. All right, so that 7 is going to get plugged in right there. All right, so we have 1.70 times 7 plus 1.30S. And that equals 37.90. 1.7 times 7 gives us 11.9. So that's going to be 11.9. And we're solving for S. We want letters on one side and numbers on the other. So this is positive 11.9. The opposite is negative 11.9. You want to do that to both sides. Cancels here. This is a 0. All right, bring down your 1.30S. All right, bring that down, 1.30S. Bring down the equal sign and bring down the decimal. This is 90 or 0.9, same thing. So on the end, it's 0.00, 90 minus 90. Okay, 7 minus 1 is 6. 3 minus 1 is 2. All right, now we're in business. This is 1.30 times S. The opposite of times is divided by. So we do that to both sides. Cancels here. And I know 26 divided by 13 is 2. So 26 divided by 1.3 is going to be 20. And that equals S. All right, so that's the final answer. And we said F was 7. Final answer.